Sending out a transmission.
Hello, it's Wednesday and I am your Wednesday host, Alex. I hope you've had a wonderful day. I certainly have, given that my day just sort of ended with this disaster that was me replacing the ink in my fountain pen. Fab time. This is my 7th or so attempt at doing this video because it's very hard. The topic this week is coming out stories. And that's really touchy for me at the moment. But I suppose I will get into it and maybe you will relate to some of this. My sort of trans discovery story starts with my boyfriend. First boyfriend, we'd been together for like a few months. He's still one of my best friends to this day. We're gonna call him George. I had been feeling out of touch in the relationship for about a month, I would say, before January in 2014. I wasn't sure why, but I just knew that I wasn't waking up in the morning being happy to be in a relationship with him. I felt something was wrong. I attribute the reason that I had to break up with him as a mix of undiscovered things about myself at that point and a lot of mental health issues. I'd taken like a month to process the fact that I kind of knew I had to break up with him, but I'd still been being normal with him, so he had no idea that it was coming when I turned up to his house one day and broke up with him. Not a good feeling, because I still love him to the end of the earth. Shortly after breaking up with him, shortly being anywhere from a week to a month, I don't know, the whole time is just very blurry for me because I tend to block a lot of things in my past out from years 7 till 11. I block a lot of that out because it was really hard to process all of that. So I really am very shoddy with the details on when things happened. A while after breaking up with him, I actually started questioning my sexuality. I'd learned that there was such a thing as pan, and I was like, holy shit, I think this is me. And pan romantic asexual became my label. So I came out to a few people as that, but it wasn't that big of a deal to me. It was probably a few months, realistically, that I came out to my mother. We sat down to eat lunch in a food court in a shopping centre, and I said to her, Mum, I'm pansexual. I had to explain to her what it was, and it was just kind of awkward. Okay, so however long after I told her that I was pan, like, that was pretty fine. She was really skeptical about it, and I could tell that she thought it was pretty much a phase. But who really knew? Like, nobody really knew. Later, when my brother would come out as bi, she would also directly use the phase word. I think it was a few months after that I started questioning my gender, and because I'm the kind of person who needs things to be organised, I needed to be labelled immediately. Otherwise, if I get disorganised, then my anxiety flares up and it's just not a good time. So I immediately labelled myself as gender fluid. So back then, I had to explain the concept of non-binary to everyone who I came out to. The only person who shocked me and knew was the health counsellor and my teacher, who I will talk about a lot. So I had undergone a process of coming out to my counsellors and a lot of my friends. A lot of my friends I came out to over Messenger, and there's nothing wrong with that. I have never had an issue with that. So I came out to a few in person, and I actually drew up a chart that was this, let me draw it. Okay, so the way that I explained gender fluidity was by showing people this scale, where 1 was like femininity and then 10 was masculinity. So I would point to it and I would say, okay, maybe like on some days I feel like a 7.5 or a 6 or an 8 or a 10. But this, little did I know, was just because I didn't know what I was. But that scale helped a lot, so I do recommend using that. Just an arrow and a scale, 1 to 10. It's a good way of explaining it. Okay, so most of my friends took it really well, and a lot of them actually asked questions, like valid, good questions, though I did get called a she-male by one friend. Then came the big one. I will be the first to say that my method of coming out to my family was atrocious, wrong, and bad. That said, the way that I worded the message through which I came out to them was very well worded. It explained everything clearly, and I've had people of authority agree with me on that, namely my psychologist and counsellors and teachers and all that. I came out over Facebook. I explained it very well because I'm a writer and my job is to word things fluently, and I did, and it was just really not good for my family. My sister apparently called my mum up bawling her eyes out. My nan called mum up freaking out, like, what does this mean? Despite that, I did get a distant cousin and her mum, so my aunt, responding well, saying that I don't understand it, but as long as you're happy, it's good. They probably aren't aware that I'm still trans though, because my parents shut it down. I'm not going to go into details because it will really distress me. That night I got called out into the lounge room by my dad. Mum and dad sat me down, said a lot of really bad things. It was a really shit situation. Things like, we won't call you they or it because it's dehumanizing. They accused my online presence and my online friends as being too influential over me and that I was doing it for attention. My sister came in later that week to also clarify that it definitely was something I was doing for attention. I came out to my teacher, who was then my English teacher and is now my literature teacher, by writing her a story that turned into a letter, and it was some funky hybrid and it was really weird. But it got the point across. She is in her 50s, I believe. 53, I think she was last week. And she took it so well. She sat me down in a quiet room a couple of days after getting it, and she said, I knew. I know that a typical response of people who get the response of I knew is not to like it. I know that a lot of people don't like to be told I knew, but if there was one person in my life who could have said I knew and for me to have believed it, it would have been her. But yeah, she told me that she'd known for a couple of years that something was up with the gender, so I was just over the moon. She offered to tell all the other senior teachers to call me Alex. She calls me Alex in class and uses the right pronoun. She's absolutely stunning. A little bit earlier than this, I came out to a friend of mine who became my best friend. We're going to call him Tyler. I came out to him the same day that I came out to him a year later, again at a trans man instead, and it was just great. He's like, fuck yeah, I don't really give a shit. He now every single day without fail finds a way to relate something to my gender. I'm learning French. I was repeating the phrase c'est un homme, really bad pronunciation, because there was like 6 different ways in French to say this is a man or that is a man or they are a man. Like, there are a million different ways. And he looks at me and he just stares at me for a moment before he points and he goes c'est un homme in really bad broken French, and I was just like, so I don't really know where to end this story because coming out never really stops. I would like to hope that one day in the future I won't have to come out to every person I interact with, but they're high hopes. That's all I really have to say. I didn't go into excessive detail because it's a sensitive subject. If you're related to anything that I said, comment down below and we can talk a bitch about how shit or great it is. That's all I have for you today. Thanks for watching. This year she's my literature. I came out to my English teacher, who was then my English. I came out to my literature. Ow. I hit my hand.